You know, what do you think of the mayor getting that
For
space
1 year,
museum?
they got paid $200,000.
You heard about that?
No.
Trying to get the space museum down in ACF.
Not that somebody else.
And this space museum is
There's
legit,
still a
too.
lot of trees there. They said there's $1 million worth of trees.
I just got back in town.
It's right up to the
Well, that's where they
That's
put their
right.
city hall, so yeah, I guess they bought a bunch of that ground as part of
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
We've got 2 farms up there, and I was talking to our farmer the other day, and one of them
We
was
went up to Mackinac
like
Oh, did you?
and
did
he
the
said,
upper
as a crow
P
flies,
and then
that is.
You rent a trailer or you just drive?
we drove.
Did
Went all the way over to
But
Fargo.
it's on the other side of the
you?
highway.
Fargo?
But
It's
still.
my favorite movie.
But I just wish they would employ,
It was only 2,000
those
miles.
things don't employ.
Well, that's true.
That's a lot.
We're doing all 50
You would think, that's what I
I got
thought when
4
I
left.
first started here, and I thought, oh, what a
Which one did you get
great
left?
thing.
You get all these jobs and.
I got Alaska, Hawaii,
I mean,
North,
the
and South
jobs would be
Dakota.
there building it because it's not.
We got North Dakota.
So Lisa's not gonna go with me to this thing at the south, so I think I'm gonna have to just do it myself.
South Dakota's,
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
no, it's, you got Mount Rushmore and Gracie Borders.
Yeah.
One.
If you do that, then you gotta hop up to Teddy Rushmore.
You wanna introduce the new member?
I was just looking at the agendas for the past.
Yeah, but I just looked at the minutes and it's not there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we were, that must have been.
Must have been, well, time
Last
flies.
year, time flies, right?
Exactly.
Right off Old Fallon Road.
Correct,
I do too.
correct, yeah.
But how do we,
I live in,
so can we do that without Roger being here and just reassign him?
I live down that street.
You can, as long as you have a quorum,
Even easier, right? Yeah. Can't
Yeah.
say no.
you know.
Does he have to agree to it, or?
Kyle, I mean, since you have a quorum here, you could go ahead and do that tonight, or you could ask to be put on the next month's agenda, either one.
Okay, we can handle it when we get out that.
Well, Jennifer's
I
secretary.
would pay more to be in the city.
Yeah, so if there's only one of the 3 of us here,
I
it's Jennifer's
I just
secretary.
found that out when I looked at my bill,
We'll figure it out.
none of my property tax go to the city.
All right, let's go ahead and get started at 7 o'clock. So welcome to the May 20th, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This time, everybody, please turn your cell phones to mute and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Applications for temporary fireworks stands heard during tonight's meeting will be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and these votes will be final. Only a recommendation for denial will be heard by the County Council at their June 8th meeting. The following documents are introduced as a matter of record for this evening's public hearing and regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, including the zoning maps, the year 2030 Master Plan in St. Charles County, which includes the 2030 Future Land Use Plan map, and the Rules of Order and Procedure for the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted by Resolution 2101. It appears we have a quorum. Do we have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, first item on our agenda are changes and or additions to the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to our first action item, and that is action item for a fireworks stand at 3205 North Highway 94. This is FWK 2607. Property owners are Linda Shorter Revocable Trust. The applicant is K&M Fireworks, Tony Kinder, for the use of a fireworks stand at 3502 Highway 94. At this time, we'll have the applicant come forward, and after the applicant, we'll open up for our public hearing. And for anybody wishing to speak, I do have to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Troy Kinder, 3582 North Newtown Avenue, St. Charles, Missouri, 63301.
All right. I missed the staff report here.
Yeah, okay, so
Sorry.
this CUP is for a temporary fireworks stand. This is actually a new location, so we've never had a case or a CUP for the current, property is being used as a landscaping contractor's yard. Due to the temporary nature and limited retail of the use of the property, we don't see any major impacts to the area, surrounding land uses, sorry. Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval for this, use with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Any questions for staff? Anything for you to add? No? Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question, this is actually for both of these. Just how close are you to each, the one coming up? You're 3502 and they're 3640. You'd be on the same side of the highway.
Yeah, same side of the highway, probably half a mile.
Okay. Not that it was gonna be an issue, but I just was wondering.
I gotcha.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, we'll open the public hearing for FWK 2607. Anyone wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll close the hearing for FWK 2607, bring it back to the commission. Any questions for the staff or the applicant? If not, I will seek a motion to approve FWK 2607.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Ellis is gone. Mr. Baker, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes is gone. Ms. Kushner?
Yes.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so motion carries. All right, next thing on the agenda is FWK 2608. This is at 3640 North Highway 94. Properties owner Robert and Glenda Malulik. Application at PFM Highway 94 LLC, doing business as Powder Monkey Fireworks, Chris Sanders. Staff.
This is another CUP for a temporary fireworks stand. Right now, the property is being used as a vehicle storage yard, according to a site plan we have on file, but I drove by it recently and it looks vacant, so there's not much on the parcel right now besides a metal building. Likewise, with the last application, due to the temporary nature of this use, we do not see any land use impacts on adjacent property owners. So we are recommending approval with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Any questions for staff? All right, moving on to the applicant. Do you solemnly swear or affirm or tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Chris Sander, 302 Palisades Court, St. Charles, 63301.
All right, anything to add to the staff report or any other comments?
Yeah, it says PFM Highway 94. It's actually PMF, like Powder Monkey Fireworks. So I don't know if they'll put that on the permit, but it'll need to be updated. And then just, we operate in Weldon Spring for maybe since 2007 already. And then this will be our first one in the county. And it was helpful with the process of getting all the drawings and everything. I made a couple phone calls, so that was great. But I should have done a long time ago, yeah. I appreciate it. If you got any questions, I can tell you all about anything you need.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, sir. This time we'll open up the public hearing for FWK 2608. Anyone wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for FWK 2608, bring it back to the commission. Does anybody have any further questions, comments for the good of the group or staff? All right, seeing none, we'll seek a motion to approve FWK 2608.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Baker, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Kushner?
Yes.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so motion passes. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. See no tabled items is the election of 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission officers. We have not done that for 2026 yet. Robert had mentioned that because we don't have the secretary or the chairman here, we could elect to push it to next meeting. We have them here as well, or we can throw everybody back in the hat and redo it. It's totally up to you guys.
Do we need their approval to,
I don't know that you necessarily need approval,
I mean,
but
would they?
I don't know that
agree
it would
to
be, probably would be in our best interest to ask them, make sure they're willing to participate again,
Right,
so.
Decline,
I guess, theoretically.
that's true, to make sure that they're, give their assent, I guess.
Yeah,
I'd say we carry it over till next meeting.
I agree.
okay, so let's table that and, we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting, is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the March 18th meeting. They were in our packet. If there's any changes or discussion that needs to be had, otherwise we will seek a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the March 18th minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? All right, Robert, any updates?
Few quick items. First, I wanted to thank Kurt Goodwin for our newest Planning and Zoning Commissioner. So now we have 10 commissioners. Again, thank you for agreeing to serve. 2 were gone tonight. So the one reason I wanted to mention it is it's been years, honestly, since we've had 10, the full membership roll. So when we have all 10 people here, it's a little crowded. So I just wanted to let you know that in advance. I mean, we'll all be set up, we'll have everything set up for you, but things will be a little close, if we have all 10 people here. On any given meeting, we may not have 10, we may have 9, 8, 7, who knows, but I just wanted to tell you that in advance, or mention that in advance. So again, thank you, Kurt. We have several newer members who we welcome your service for St. Charles County. Also, I wanted to mention that St. Charles County has a new flooding resource webpage at sccmo.org/2422. If you go to that webpage, sccmo.org/2422, you'll find a resource page for flooding for St. Charles County, for property owners, prospective property owners, business owners, residents, etc. You can look up a property and find the flood risk and download some documents like elevation certificates that we have on file. You can sign up for flood alerts, learn about your flood risk, report storm damage. There's detailed guidance on what to do after a flood. And 2 of the key things I want to get across to anyone listening tonight in the universe out there is that 1, you can get flood insurance whether or not you live in a flood zone. In fact, if you don't live in a flood zone, your flood insurance is probably less expensive, or even a lot less expensive. 2, FEMA tells us that 40% of the claims, the flood insurance claims, for people in the National Flood Insurance Program are for buildings outside of flood zones. So just because you live outside of a flood zone or own property outside of a flood zone, it does not mean that you have no flood risk. It just means that it's a different risk. It's a lower risk. But you can still flood outside of a flood zone. We have so many people who say that, oh, I don't live in a flood zone, so I'm okay. Well, there's always flood risk, and it may be from a river, it may be from other sources as well. Sometimes in built-up areas, it's just the fact that there's just too much water at that moment to flow away quick enough, and it can cause flooding, even though you may or may not be close to a creek or a river. So that's something I wanted to, 2 pieces of information I want to get across to everyone listening tonight. The third thing I want to mention is next Thursday, we have a master plan steering committee meeting scheduled. And so at that meeting, the master plan steering committee will be reviewing a full draft of the master plan, including the future land use maps. And I think that this will be a really important step forward for the master plan steering committee and for the master plan itself. I would mention that unlike in past master plans, we're suggesting to the master plan steering committee for their review, of course, and for their approval or their changes, however they want to approach it. But we're looking at land use in a little bit different way, future land use, in that right now it's kind of an all or nothing approach, or either have sewer service and can do this whole host of things in this particular district, or you're outside of that sewer service area. But now I think we're suggesting a more nuanced approach that takes into account like natural constraints of properties, including things like steep slopes, flood zones, and tree stands, to take that into account in terms of the capacity for future land uses and how those land uses should be arrayed. Should they be clustered? Should they not be clustered? Some things like that. So I think you'll find that interesting when it gets to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission will play a role in this process, but I will say it's the master, according under the county's charter and our code, it's the master plan steering committee that actually makes the recommendation to the county council for the draft master plan.
I've got a question for you, Robert.
Yeah.
Data centers have been a real big thing, obviously, lately in the region. Is there anything in our master plan that speaks of those?
Specifically on data centers, not that I can recall, not specific to data centers. But I can tell you that it's something we're looking at closely. In fact, the community development director and myself will be attending in a few weeks a day-long session for municipal and county folks in Missouri and data centers. Also, I've been undertaking some training recently on what are the land use impacts for data centers. And I can tell you up front that it's a whole range. There are actually little micro mini data centers that are no bigger than, say, a truck, and there are some that cover 500 acres. And there's a whole range in between, and they have different impacts. Some have very limited impacts, not much different than an electrical substation, or sometimes even less than an electrical substation. Other ones are much larger impacts on energy, electricity specifically, and water. Some of them are water cooled, some of them are air cooled, some are a combination of both. So there's not necessarily like one size fits all in terms of data centers. The one that's going to be built in Montgomery County, for instance, it's a large scale data center, but the plan is for that one to be air cooled about 93% of the time and water cooled about 7% of the time. So the impacts on water is different than for a data center, say in Oregon, that's using all water to cool that data center.
Under our current ordinances, where do data centers fall?
We don't have a specific land use category for data centers. The closest that we have is there's a category for in the commercial office district. Oops. And I'll read you what it says. But it's not an exact fit, and I'll tell you why. There's a land use category for, let's see, computer and data processing services in the commercial office district and in all commercial districts and industrial districts. But we've been interpreting that to mean an office where they do work. They do work with computing services or computer repair. Again, we're looking at that as like an office environment that does that sort of work. I think that what we're talking about is something different because the primary use there is computing and data processing on a larger scale. You might, a similar analogy might be a local bakery, where it's like a walk-in bakery on Main Street here, where you walk in and you buy your bread, and they bake bread on a daily basis, versus a large-scale manufacturing bakery that might be 400 acres or something like that. I mean, those are two different scales and two different types of, land uses, and they have different impacts.
I would just say that probably something that the steering committee should probably put some thought into, and where, if these are to be located in the county, where might those go?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll give you an example. There's we were looking at one in Oregon that uses about 1 million gallons of water a day for cooling. But if you look at the General Motors plant in Wentzville, and that produces about 1 million gallons a day of wastewater that goes into Wentzville's sewage treatment system and is treated every day. And they certainly have capacity to do that, and it's not a problem, but you just have to coordinate the utilities, I think, with these land uses, ones that take a lot of energy and water. And again, some use a lot of water, some of them don't use as much water.
Some of them have sealed cooling systems too. They're pricier, but some of them have it where it's sealed, where they don't actually take the water too.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I think that goes back to the fact that I don't think there's one description of a data center that people can use. I think there's like a range, and they have different land use impacts depending on how they're designed. But I do think we have to coordinate our utilities and the construction of data centers wherever this takes place.
Yeah, it'd be my suggestion, and I know the board could weigh in, but I think all data centers should probably be under a conditional use permit. And maybe that needs to be done via a county, a St. Charles County ordinance, I'm not sure, but that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I just have a question. On the north side of 70,
Use your
there's all
microphone.
these electrical panels.
Can you turn your microphone?
Just get it down. On the north side of 70, there's all these electrical grids. I mean, hundreds of them in a field. Were those built in anticipation of the data center? Because the data center is almost very close to being directly across the highway from it.
Okay. You may be referring to, there's a solar panel,
It is.
solar farm.
It is, solar
Yeah.
farm, I'm sorry.
It's been there a long time.
I think it's totally separate.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a solar farm that's been there for years. I think it's in the city of O'Fallon. But this kind of brings up, right now, there's already 8 or 9 data centers in St. Charles County. And some of them are on, like on the campus of MasterCard and things like that. I mean, there's just, and you don't hear about them creating these impacts necessarily on neighbors. But at the same time, I forgot the town in Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's in the Milwaukee area. They have a data center that's like 10 million square feet in 20 buildings, something like that, on this one campus. It's the largest, I think, I've ever heard of, in the U.S. But so again, you have a whole scale of, or a whole range, I should say, of data centers.
There's one they're trying to get approved in Hannibal, and they actually want to put an 8 gigawatt solar field to feed just the data center.
Okay. Yeah, the land you're talking about, I think is zoned industrial, and that's where that solar farm is located.
Solar farm is,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Nice meeting you. Take care.